Donnell Stanley done at center?
Donnell's done well. You know, I think the first probably 5 practices, I think there's always a transition, getting used to snapping a football. But he's done well. You know, Donnell obviously last year was one of our best players up front, and the guy works hard. At the end of the day, it's important to him, and I'm glad he's on our team. He's got a bright future for his career. He's got to be able to play guard and center if he has aspirations of wanting to play in the National Football League.
As you were looking at your candidates after Allen was gone, what about Donnell said he's a guy who can make that move? He's the guy that I want to give a shot to.
Well, I think I owe it to all of my players that play inside, whether it's Zach, Cedarius Hutchinson, Donnell. I owe it to all those guys to make sure that they can snap the football. Someday when they're trying to make a professional football team, they're going to be asked to play multiple positions. And, you know, the first time they try to do that, I don't want their experience to be, you know, here I am trying to make the team at the highest level, and I've never snapped a football in a game or played it in practice. You know, we go out and play on Monday Night Football my first game against the Vikings. We only got 7 linemen dressed.
Right.
So you got to be able to show that you're versatile, and that's something that I feel like that's my responsibility as a coach while they're here in college, to make sure they have a comfort zone. So next year we'll have Zach being able to play center, Donnell, Cedarius Hutchinson. Talked with Coach Muschamp the other day about it, about having multiple guys, Eric Douglas, Chandler Farrell, Hank Manos. I mean, you got to have a lot of guys who can play center so we can, have the success here that we want to have.
What did Blake Camper and the other guys at right tackle show you to make you guys comfortable moving Zach back inside?
You know, Blake's a guy that, came here, and I think by his own admission will tell you that he didn't work hard. He didn't do what he needed to do. As far as investing in the weight room, you know, I think he was probably more of a guy that just came in, did what was asked maybe, and then kind of went on his way. This off season, he's been in the weight room every day on his own, every Saturday, every Sunday, doing the things he needs to do. Thus, you see him playing much better. You know, Campers jumped in last year and played in the Tennessee game, played in the Arkansas game, and you would never know that we had 3 starting linemen out. I mean, that's a compliment to him and Cedarius Hutchinson, about some of the guys that, you know, I always tell them, you're one play away from being in the game. Our standard's not going to change. Our standard here is we expect to dominate the line of scrimmage and whoever's in. And we're not going to sit back and make excuses that we had 3 starters out. You guys know how many different starters we had at O-line last year. And if you didn't know, you wouldn't know. And that's a compliment to our players as far as buying in and doing the things they need to do, not just while they're here in the building. Anybody can do what's asked of when they're in the building. What about when you're away from the building? Are you getting 8 hours sleep? Are you taking care of your body? Are you eating? Are you eating enough protein? Doing the things to become a really good football player and try to win the SEC.
Coach, you talked about the injuries, and you talked about the word dominate. With everything that's gone on the last couple of years, I know it's been tough to be able to find that consistency. Is some of the words that you've been talking about going into next year, is it just as simple as dominating consistency, or is there any other?
I think anytime you play on line of scrimmage, you know, it's a battle up front. And it all starts up front, whether it's on offensive line or defensive line. And I think we've continued to improve our line of scrimmage here. I've only been here 1 year, but I've seen significant improvement. That's a compliment to Coach Muschamp, Coach Thompson, Coach Mike Peterson, Dillman, strength coaches. You know, so it's a work in progress. We're trending in that direction. Our arrow's up. This is a positive environment, and positive things are going on. You guys see it taking place right in front of your face. But I'm not going to put a prediction on when we're going to be dominant on the line of scrimmage specifically. But that's our initiative and our goal.
Who is a dominant offensive line? Who has one? Who had one in college football last year?
I think, sometimes you see the publicity of some teams maybe that have some, but I think there's a growing concern amongst us O-line coaches and just people in general. You hear it from the people in the NFL all the time, lack of quality offensive linemen and being able to develop them. And that's a big thing that I've really tried to work on, is just developing players. And, when you watch the national championship game, I think you saw 2 teams struggle to block either team's D-line, both teams. And those are supposedly the best 2 teams in college football playing each other, and neither one could really block the other team's defensive line. So it's a growing concern. We've got to continue to find ways to develop players and get them to be able to match up better. They get you in 5 one-on-ones a lot, the defensive by scheme, and, they'll find your scab. They'll find your wart, I always say, and they'll keep picking at it until you find a way to help, be able to help that guy. Well, if you're in 5 one-on-ones, you can't even find a way to get them help. So you just got to continue to find athletes that can move their feet and want to compete and find a way to get the job done. And that's what we're all constantly searching for. It's a never-ending job.
Is the fact that the big athletic guys maybe feel like, as they're coming up in the game, maybe feel like defensive line is a more premium position, so they want to play defensive line? As you're recruiting kids, do you find the better?
I think there's definitely that. I can think of 2 names right now. When we recruited Jesus Gibbs, we had him committed there in the summer, and then he signed with us, but all of a sudden Virginia Tech tried to sell to him D-line. Because he was playing well at D-line. He played well at O-line too, but that's an example of, they're always going to take the bigger, more athletic guys and have them over there. When Jesus Gibbs, in my eyes, when he was here in the summer, was an offensive lineman, but I knew he could play well enough on defensive line to play D-line, and that was Virginia and Virginia Tech's only angle because we already had him. We weren't supposed to get him. We have another player that's, obviously committed to us now, and other SEC schools now are starting to talk to him about D-line. And I'm like, really? But that means that we're looking for the right kind of guys. We just got to have a long list, and hopefully we can get them to come here.
What are some of those attributes that you sort of look for in a young offensive lineman that could potentially develop down the road?
Well, I think you got to have quick feet. You got to have the ability to bend. You want to be a guy that obviously has length, your ability to change direction, and your ability to anchor. That's a big thing nowadays is your ability to bend and anchor. And when I say anchor, that means not get pushed back into the pocket. That's your fastest way to be on the bench. You can't get pushed back into the quarterback. The tackles obviously can create the width in the pocket, but the interior guys have got to be able to set the depth of the pocket there and try to keep pocket integrity at all times. And then in the run game, a lot of people are playing odd now, so they're playing these 4 eyes, and that's a little bit more like a guard would. So maybe some of your real tall guys aren't necessarily suited as well to block those 4 eyes. You want more of a power type guy that's got power in his body that can block those 4 eyes in a one-on-one, because you can't use the guard to help him because he's got to work with the center.
Does coaching and kind of this up-tempo offense change the way you coach offensive line, or is it still kind of the same?
It's still the same. I think the thing that I have to continue to emphasize and pay attention to is you have a tendency when you go faster, obviously there's more fatigue that starts to set in, and I think when fatigue starts to set in, you start to play higher. And I've got to continue to do a good job of, when we're going fast, making sure we're playing with pad level. Because if we can go fast and play with pad level, we'll have a much better chance of having success as far as on the line of scrimmage, because the low man wins. Even when the defensive guys get tired, I see both lines of scrimmage starting to get higher. Well, we've got to find a way when it's play 60, play 70, play 80, that we can play with pad level, and that'll give us an opportunity to win games, in the second half or the fourth quarter that we all want to do here.
Speaking of tempo, Tom Luganbill, I guess, saw practice. He said this morning that South Carolina's offense looks like old school Oregon. Is that accurate? I
don't know. It's not really my place to talk about those things, obviously, publicly. But, we've had some success. We've done some good things here early. There's still a lot of things, some fine details and some little things that we want to continue to emphasize. But we appreciate our guys showing up every day, wanting to work, wanting to be coached, and that's part of it, showing up, wanting to get better, and understanding that you can do a lot of things away from the building here that'll make you better too.
How have you challenged Dennis this spring?
Just basically daily encouraging him at times, and at the same time, trying to talk about the details. Dennis is significantly improved from last year, from where he was when he first got here. He didn't get here until obviously in the summer, didn't get the spring ball, didn't get the winter conditioning, and I've seen a different guy. So he's drastically improved, and that's a compliment to him. He's doing the things away from the building too, with extra sleep, getting extra lifts in, those kind of things that are going to give him an opportunity to have a successful senior season.
He started 11 games
games last year. Did that exceed your expectations?
I expected him to come in and be able to play. I didn't know exactly what number it was and how soon he was going to be ready to play, but that was part of the process. And he's obviously picked up the playbook really well. At the same time, I just got to get him to become more verbal. He's a guy that kind of leads by example type situation, whereas I like to see him become more of a verbal leader at times and say, hey, let's get this, enough's enough. We're going to get this right here today. We're going to go out and do what we need to do to win a football game.
Malik Young go right back to offensive tackle when he moves
He'll go back to tackle, and I want to obviously when he gets back in the fall, I'd like to do a little bit with him at guard. So he's got versatility too for his career. In fairness to him, he doesn't really have the length that sometimes you look for at the tackle position, but he does have quick feet. Just give him an opportunity to be versatile and maybe be that first guy in the game at any spot, kind of like the way that Camper was at left guard, and right tackle last year.
What do you expect from Zach Bailey in the fall?
I mean, Zach's obviously stepped in and got back in there at guard. I think he feels more comfortable there. I think it's more of a natural position for him. Zach's a guy that has a lot of reps, and he's a good football player. I want him to become more consistent. I want him to lead by example. He's never going to be a verbal guy necessarily. Occasionally he will grab guys and be verbal, but I want him to really be a dominant force with, our interior right now with Zach, Donnell, and Sedarius Hutchinson. I feel like we can have a really good group of physical guys that have power in their body that can establish the line of scrimmage up front.
It seems like beyond that kind of top veteran group, you've got a lot of first and second year guys working in the second and also the third team spots. What have some of those guys kind of showed you to put themselves in those positions?
Well, they've shown me they're inconsistent, and that's not good. But they're working at it, and, we just got to find ways to continue to work with those guys and develop them. It's a big thing we talk about a lot, get them a lot of reps. The summer will be huge. We'll be here for the Baymester training, May, June, July. Continuing to establish as far as, learning your plays, learning the different things that it takes to be successful at this level. A lot of these guys come in as young players. They're the biggest body on the line of scrimmage at their high school, so they automatically have success by default. Well, when you're matched up against guys that are your same size or sometimes faster and stronger than you, your fundamentals, whether it's pad level, hand placement, those type of things are going to be the difference of whether you have success on a play or not. That's what they've got to learn. They've been able to have success just because they've been the bigger guy, as opposed to, I got to play with some technique now and some pad level and do the things you need to do to block people and do what's asked.
How close is Javon Gwynn from what you recall seeing as a high school player too?
He's obviously comes down and watches spring ball. I know he's been working hard. He'll be here obviously, and for June and July, give him an opportunity to get in the playbook, learn when he needs to play. But, I think sky's the limit for all those young guys we have.
Did you feel you checked all the boxes with that group that you have coming in?
I mean, I think we're in, and depending on what specific person you're talking about, that's hard to assess. I will tell you that, my before I pass judgment on any player, I like to give them 2 years to see if I can develop them. And that's a big part of it. It's a developmental position. You don't play on the line of scrimmage as a freshman. If you got to play freshman on the line of scrimmage, then you got some issues, that have taken place. And hopefully we're not going to be in that situation. But I've got to get those guys to be ready because they could be very well one play away. Because we have got to somehow find a way to build some depth here in our organization with our offensive line as far as having quality depth, not just numbers.
How has Jordan Carty improved, and what's kind of the next step for him?
I think the biggest thing for Jordan is we've got to get him to play faster. I think sometimes there's a little bit of a process that goes on when you call plays, when you are going fast. Sometimes you don't react as fast. There's some thinking involved. Defense is changing things, so that part of it's got to come, and that's a repetition thing. He has tremendous amount of ability, has all the physical tools. I just got to get him to play faster. So how do you get a guy to play faster? He's got to completely, thoroughly understand what's being asked of him. And I've said that over and over. You've got to know inside and out what you're being asked to do, so that way you can play fast. Because if you're confused, then you're going to play slow. And we all know in this league, you can't play slow because those guys across from you are obviously a lot faster than you to begin with.
I think Muschamp said English was his second language. Is that accurate? What was his first language?
Well, he's Jamaican, obviously. Moved here when he's 13, so that's just part of the process. But we've got that in pretty well handled there. I just think I've got to get him to be able to play faster, and the reason and how I'm going to be able to do that is to make sure he thoroughly understands it and realize that there's not a bad question. If you really don't understand specifically what I'm saying, don't be afraid to ask. There's not a bad question. It's practice. Spring ball. This is time to develop. Let's get all those things out of the way so when we come rolling around in the fall, you have more confidence and you can have an opportunity to have success.
Coach, you talk about playing faster. Have you seen some of these guys that might have been younger but they were thrown into the fire a little bit earlier because of injuries last season that have kind of surprised you this spring?
I mean, I think all of our young guys, depending on specific play, at times look great. There's other times when they look like, what are you doing? I mean, that's the way this game is right now as far as when you're dealing with young players up front on the offensive line. So, we just want to become more consistent. Coach Muschamp talks about it all the time. So we've got to find a way to become more consistent, and that's what we strive to do right now every play.
Will said Hank Manos had kind of impressed him early on. What has he kind of shown you guys?
Well, I think at first I started him out at guard. I wanted to figure out if he could play guard because I know he played center in high school. 2, we moved him back into center after the scrimmage, did some things in the scrimmage the other day that shows that he's more of a natural center. So, we'll continue to develop him there. He's got to get his weight up, you know what I mean? He's got to continue to work on that. And that's another guy that I've got to slow the game down for him a little bit because of the thinking process. It's not a question of intelligence by any means. That's not the issue. It's just when you go from high school to all of a sudden this level, things are going fast. You got to slow things down for these guys, and sometimes that's having more walkthroughs. Sometimes that's having more video sessions. Sometimes that's having them get up and draw it on a grease board. There's millions of ways we try to do that so we can slow things down.
How much does his background, maybe as a wrestler, help?
We can tell that he likes to be in close quarters with guys. That's good and bad. I want him to play with more separation, though, and he likes to have them in close up in here nice and tight. Well, as an offensive lineman, you want to be able to play with extension, so that's something we'll work on. His natural instinct is to grab and be close. Well, I want you to have hands-on and play with separation and play with extension.
We talked earlier about the defensive linemen, giving offensive linemen a hard time. Should the rules be changed to lighten up on holding a little bit, or anything like that?
No, not at all. No. I mean, how many holding calls did we have last year?
I'm not sure. Not many.
Not many. So, I mean, I don't think they're calling holding. You know what I mean? Our players do a good job of playing within the rules, and we'll continue to do that. I mean, it's just the nature of the position. You could always change the rules, too, where offensive linemen can't be downfield when you're throwing the football. I mean, there's a lot of rules that I'm sure specific coaches, according to what position you play, they'd like to have changed. But at the end of the day, the rules are the rules, and we play within the rules.
But I was talking more about leveling the playing field between the offensive linemen and defensive linemen.
I think the field is level. I mean, when we go out and go against our guys, we have a great competitive atmosphere. We have good on good, and I think it's a great matchup. Awesome.
Thanks, Eric.